Hey, all right, folks. I've got a fun one today. I say it's fun, and I mean it. It's one of my favorite topics, and I feel like I'm really good at teaching it, and I think that you will find it pretty easy, regardless. So, we're going to go over trigonometry in geometry. What that means is questions like this. So, we've been working a lot with triangles, right? A lot with triangles. And if you see something like this, your immediate response should be, I don't have enough information to solve for x, right? You've got one angle, one side, and an x. Well, how in the world do you do that? Well, I'm going to show you how. And I'm going to show you through a very complicated graphic, but I will explain it. It makes a lot of sense. Let me pull it up here. All right. So this looks like a lot, and it's not really. The main thing you need to pay attention to, the thing that you have to essentially memorize, commit to memory, like this is what I need to know about it, is right there. SOH-CAH-TOA, SOH-CAH-TOA. SOH-CAH-TOA. If you can remember SOH-CAH-TOA, right, then you're good. You got it, you're set, you're done. Pretty much everything else falls into place, and I'll show you what I mean. So there are three trig functions, and if you don't know what trig is, they are, oh wait, no, go back. No, okay. Right here, trigonometry. You got sine, cosine, tangent, right? Then you've got secant, cosecant, and cotangent. We'll talk about these three in a later video. We're going to focus on the top three right here. If you look at any calculator, your phone calculator, calculator on the computer, any calculator, you're going to find sine, or sin, cosine, or cos, and tangent, tan, on those calculators. Now, these functions are really complicated. They're really complicated things. I had a professor in college that made us calculate like a tangent problem on paper without using a calculator, and it took the entire class like an hour. It sucked. It was awful. You never have to do that. No one ever expects you to do that. Everyone just goes, oh, you're doing trig? Here's a calculator. Sine, cosine, tangent. Right? So you're going to see those on your calculators. We're going to use them for the first time, right, accurately. But you do have to use them correctly. Get rid of that for now. And how do you use them correctly? Well, SOH-CAH-TOA. SOH-CAH-TOA. If you do this, if you memorize this, it all makes sense. So what does SO mean? It means sine of x equals, or sine of the angle equals, O opposite over H hypotenuse. OH, this one's always on top, this one's on bottom. Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. So cosine means cosine of the angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent is A, hypotenuse is H. And then tangent, TOA, T is tangent of the angle X equals opposite O over adjacent A. Now, of course, opposite and adjacent aren't words we really use. They're not like readily available in your mind or anything like that. You should know hypotenuse by now, right? Hypotenuse is across from the right angle in a right triangle, and it's, you know, the largest side and all that stuff. But opposite and adjacent doesn't make sense, right? Those are essentially positions. You can be opposite someone, you can be adjacent to someone. Opposite would mean like across from, adjacent would mean next to. So if we come down to this triangle right here that I put out, that's what we're looking at. We've got our angle right here, and opposite and adjacent and hypotenuse are all referring to sides of the triangle. Sides of the triangle. Well, if this is my angle and I go straight, let me get a line here. If that's my angle and I go straight from my angle across the triangle, right? That's my opposite side. My opposite side is the side across from the angle. Another way to look at it is an angle is created by two lines, right? Here's the vertex. You got your vertex right here. And then a line goes out, a line goes out. The angle is the measurement in between. Well, opposite is the side that doesn't make up the angle, right? This is the only side where if you trace it, you won't ever come near this angle. That's opposite. And then adjacent. Well, adjacent's the one that confuses most people when they're trying to find it. But I just said that an angle is made up of two sides, right? Well, one of those sides is always going to be the hypotenuse. One of the sides, how do I do that? I don't want to do that. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh no. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Okay. So one of the sides is always going to be the hypotenuse. Sorry, going back to what we were talking about. When the angle is created, whichever angle you're using, and mind you, you never use the right angle. You will never use the right angle when it comes to these x degrees. It's always going to be one of the other two angles in the triangle. So coming back to this, it's created by two angles. One of them will always be the hypotenuse. The other one will be the adjacent side. So the A, the adjacent to the angle. So how do we set this up? Well, I've got some practice problems to show you. How do we solve it? Well, I've got some practice problems to show you. So let me do this. The only thing you really need from this paper or this page is SOH-CAH-TOA. So I'm going to try and resize this so you only see, frankly, what you kind of need. There we go. Cool. All right, so we're going to leave that up, and we're going to use that to solve a couple of practice problems. We're going to use that to solve a couple of practice problems that aren't directly in the way of each other. I'm trying to get everything sized up nice and neat here so I can do it. Also, I like showing off my backgrounds if you didn't notice, so I tend to try and keep them available. Okay. So first thing we need to look at is where is our angle? Right, our angle's up here. So depending on where the angle is depends on what is opposite and what is adjacent, what is across and what is next to it. So if I look at this guy right here, this is my angle. If I draw a line leaving the angle and hitting a side, that is opposite. That is across from it, right? So we have an O. We have opposite. We have O. Because there's a number there. And even though we don't have a number where the variable is, the variable counts essentially as a number. It counts as having something, so for future reference. But the opposite side is 84. So we're going to use opposite. Here, I'll write that out. Opposite equals 84, right? So if that's the opposite side, then this must be the adjacent because across from the 90-degree angle is our hypotenuse. Well, there's nothing on our adjacent side, so we don't have an A. But like I just said, across from the 90-degree angle is X. So we have a hypotenuse. Hypotenuse equals X, right? Cool. So we have an O and an H. OH. That's when you would come over here to SOH-CAH-TOA, figure out which one you're going to use. Well, we have an H, right? So TOA, tangent, is out. This doesn't use hypotenuse. It uses opposite and adjacent, so that's gone. So now it's between sine and cosine. Cosine is AH, sine is OH. Well, we have OH. So we're going to use sine. So, I mean, I guess I don't have to copy it. So here it is, right? We're going to use this guy right here, this one. Sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to set that up here. Sine of the angle, our angle is 35 degrees, equals. So now we need the opposite. Well, we already figured that out, didn't we? Opposite equals 84. Now we also need the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse equals X. So we get all of that figured out. We set them up just like it is here. Sine of the angle equals opposite of our hypotenuse. sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cool. So we're almost done, but we don't even need a calculator yet. We just have to get this solved for x. Not too difficult. Some basic stuff. When x is on the bottom, you got to do a little bit extra because x can either be on the bottom of the equation or the top. But regardless, it's just a little bit extra. What is the opposite of division? Well, the opposite of division is, of course, multiplication. So we're going to multiply both sides by x. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, whatever. This will work. Right? Multiply both sides by x. What that's going to do is cross these two out and leave you with 84 on this side. And then the sine of 35 times x equals 84. So as complicated as that looks right now, all you have to realize is that sine of 35 is a number. It's a decimal. By the way, all your answers are going to be decimals when it comes to trig. It's so unbelievably rare to get a solid number as an answer in trig. So I just want to let you know that now so you don't freak out when you see all the answer choices as decimals, because there's a lot. But this is just a number. And so if this was 2x equals 84, well, this is multiplication, right? So what would you do to both sides to get rid of the 2 from x, right? Well, you would divide. Well, you're no different. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to divide both sides by the sine of 35. And I know that's, kind of weird, but the whole point of this, everything that I am doing right now, even though it's very basic algebra, everything that I'm doing is basically just setting up what I'm going to put in the calculator. So x equals, right, 84 over the sine of 35. So that is what we're going to put in the calculator. And it'll give us our answer. So let me bring up the calculator real quick and show you how to use it. There are two different kinds of calculators in the end when it comes to working with trig. And pretty much trig is the only time you'll see a difference in calculators. The first thing you need to do is make sure your calculator is in degrees. If it is in radians or gradians, you will not get the right answer. It needs to be in degrees. For all of you using your iPhone as a calculator, turn it sideways. You'll see sine, cosine, and tangent. And then you'll also see rad, grad, and DEG. Make sure it's in degrees, and you'll be set. So we've got 84 divided by the sine of 35. We're going to put that in, excuse me, almost that order. We're going to do 84 divided by, now you have to put the angle in first, 35, then go to the trig function and hit sine, and hit equals. Don't forget to hit equals. Do not forget. But in the end, that's it. That's our x. X equals 146.45, because this 4 would round up because of the 9. What is it, feet? Yeah, feet. Cool. Now, that checks out in two ways. One, because the math is right. We did it all. We're set. We're good. And two, the hypotenuse is the longest side of the triangle. If we got a number smaller than 84, we did something wrong, because this has to be larger than this side. It has to be. It's how triangles work. So let me go through the calculator one more time. Make sure you know what you're doing, because this is a really easy section because the calculator does all the work. You'll notice, for those of you who have a much better grasp on math and everything like that, anytime x is on the bottom, You're just going to divide by the trig function. Anytime x is on top, you're going to multiply by the number. You'll see it in the next question, but once you do a couple of these, you're going to be like, oh, it's just the same way every time. The only thing that changes is the numbers I push in the calculator. And it's true. It's always going to be like that. If x is on the bottom, you're always going to have a number divided by the angle trig function equals. It'll always look like that. That's, I mean, one of the reasons why I like. So the calculator, right? It'll always be side, right? The side you're working with, when x is on the bottom, sorry. So anytime you're doing trig and x is on the bottom of your fraction, then this is what you would put in the calculator to solve it. You can skip the algebra and do this. It's going to be side, I'll separate them with a slash, right? Divided by angle, angle trig function and equals. Make sure you hit equals as a button press. If you don't hit the equal sign, you're not going to get the right answer. So for instance, in our example here, if I did all of this correct, so the side was 84, and then my next button press is divided by, then I put in the angle, which is 35, and then the trig function, which is sine. The calculator just leaves the sign of 35 on the screen. It's going to do that no matter what. 0.57 is not your answer. Also, 0.57 is not larger than 84. That is not the side. You got to hit equals. You have to finish it off with equals because your calculator is a tool. I mean, it's no different than a hammer. If someone had a hammer flipped around the other way, the claw side that's used for pulling out nails, and they were smacking a nail with it, it's not going to work very well. I mean, it's just a tool, all right? The tool's not bad, but the person who's using it needs to learn how to use it. A calculator is no different. It's just a tool. So we got to use it the right way, and then it'll do everything we need for it. So that's it, 146, right? So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to clear all of this. And then we're going to go to a different function now. Let's try this one. Resize that. Here we go. Cool. Move it that way. There we go. All right. Excuse me. So let's look at what we have. We've got an angle up here in the top left corner, right? And as always, we can start right off by looking for the opposite. We draw a line leaving the angle and hit a side. That's our opposite side. Problem is there's no number there, is there? So O is out. We're not using O. Well, frankly, if you go up to SOH-CAH-TOA, that only leaves one option already, doesn't it? If there's no O, then this is out because there's no O. There's no O, so this is out. This looks the only option that we have left. So is out, Ka is good, To is out. It's got to be this one. That's why and how you're going to use SOH-CAH-TOA all the time. This just sets up your equation. Once you figure out which one of the three it is, sine, cosine, or tangent, you just plug in the numbers. So let's plug in some numbers, right? We're going to use cosine because it's the only one without an O. Our hypotenuse is across from our right angle. I'll draw that line. Remember, this thing right here is an arrow that points at the hypotenuse. So if we follow it along, boom, that's our hypotenuse. So x is our hypotenuse. If we don't have an opposite, then what is 15 kilometers? Well, if it's not opposite, if it's not across from the angle, it's next to it. It's adjacent. It's A. So we have A and H, we have cosine. Let's set it up. Cosine of 58 degrees, right? Our measurement, I'm sorry, our angle equals. Now, this is the other part. Use SOH-CAH-TOA to set it up correctly. If you have the fraction flipped, you're going to get it all wrong. So we've got adjacent on top, hypotenuse on bottom. Adjacent is 15, hypotenuse is x. There's our equation. So we could do the algebra, right? We could multiply both sides by x, then divide both sides by the cosine of 58, and finish it all off. So remember, anytime x is on bottom, you can just follow the calculator steps when x is on bottom, right? And those were side, right, divided by, and then you hit angle, trig function equals. So when x is on bottom, you can just do this right here every time and get the answer in your calculator. For those of you who need to see it, I can work it out real quick. The algebra, that is. So you're going to, let's put a multiplication there and a multiplication here. All right, you're going to multiply both sides by x. It's going to cross those two out on the right side. It's going to leave it on the left side. So you're going to have cosine of 58. And for those of you who are like, I got it, you don't have to keep going. Well, then do the math. Get the answer before I do. You got all the time in the world. Man, I cannot remember. There it is. All right. But yeah, do this and get it right, and then you can be like, haha, I did it faster than you, eh? Cool. All right. So if we multiply both sides by x, these cancel out. X goes to the left side. We got cosine of 58x equals 15. Then we divide both sides by the cosine of 58. So you'll have x equals 15 over cosine of 58. There it is. All right, now for those of you who worked ahead, good job. I hope you did. But we're going to do it now. And following our little calculator, or just looking and following this, right? We got 15 divided by, now we got to put the angle in first, 58, then the trig function, so cosine, and then you have to hit equals, and you got it. Like I said, I love this section. After like the lines and triangles, all right, so it's 28.306. Well, 6 is greater than 5, right? 6 is bigger than 5. So it's 28.31 because this third number is larger than 5, or 5 or larger, so this gets plus 1. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, I love this. I love this section so much because it seems like such a breath of fresh air because the calculator does all the work. There's a little bit of algebra, like you move an X around a little bit and then you just plug it into a calculator. For me, I find it such a breath of fresh air after doing like lines and triangles and the proofs and like the similarities and stuff. Those concepts are really hard to grasp. And then this one is just, hey, do this in the calculator, get the answer. Easy peasy. So I love trig. I love trigonometry in general. It's a really easy math, but it looks complicated. So it makes you feel really smart because everyone's like, what are you doing? It's like easy stuff, but don't worry about it. All right, last one. Last one for two reasons. One, we've done sine and cosine, right? So we haven't done tangent. So obviously the next one's probably going to be tangent, right? And then two, what happens when x is on the top of the equation? We've been doing x on the bottom, right? It's been the hypotenuse 2 times in a row. So let's see what happens when it's not. The reason why I saved that for last is because it's easier and it's actually really nice. So we got this equation right here, or this triangle right here. The very first thing you should notice is we do not have an h, do we? Line. So if you follow the right angle outwards to the hypotenuse, there's nothing there. And since there's nothing here, and we have numbers on the other two sides, or at least a variable and a number, we don't have an h. We have an O and an A. Well, no h means that's out. OH, H, no H. CAH, right? H is out. It's got to be this one. O and A, tangent, O and A. Cool. So I want to do it. Let's set it up. So we know tangent of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. Our opposite is across from the angle. So drawing a line from the angle going outward, right, is our opposite. So 26 is our opposite side. And then the adjacent is what's next to the angle that isn't the hypotenuse. So it can't be this side because that's the hypotenuse. So this is the adjacent x. So we have opposite and adjacent. Now we just set it up, right? Tangent of our angle, which is 29, equals opposite. Well, what number is opposite our angle? If we follow it along, 26 is opposite our angle. And then what number is adjacent to our angle? What side is adjacent? Well, it happens to be x. Did I seriously put x on the bottom of every single one of these? Dang it, man. All right, well, we'll solve this one. I feel like an idiot. We'll solve this one, and then I'll make a new one real quick in front of you and make sure that x is on top. Oh, man, I'm a dunce. Whatever. All right, well, x is on bottom again, which means we can follow the same pattern, right? If you want to do the algebra, you multiply both sides by x, divide by the tangent of 29. I'm going to skip the steps because we've already seen it twice. You're going to end up with x equals, right, 26 on top, tangent of 29 on bottom. There we go. And then, of course, the calculator is exactly the same because x on bottom again. All right, so it's side. So you put in the side, right, 26, and then we put in divided by the angle, which is 29, the trig function, which is tangent, and then we hit equals. And that'll give us our answer. So I'm going to get my mouse back, get to the calculator. All right, so our side is 26 divided by our angle, which is 29, our trig function, which is tangent, and our equal sign. Cool. X is 46.91. X equals 46.91. Like centimeters, right? Yeah, it's centimeters. There you go. All right, so bear with me for a second. Let's edit. I can't believe I did that. Let's edit this guy real quick. We're gonna do this situation. Cool. It's a whole new question, right? Okay. Here we go. One last practice question. Sorry about that, folks. I can't believe I did that. I was like, yeah, the last one, X is going to be on the bottom. Derp. Okay. Maybe extra work. So, one last practice question. Let's look at this. We've got, if we go from the angle and look outwards, we do not have an O. Our opposite is not there. We do have a hypotenuse, right? Hypotenuse is across from the right angle. It's there. So we have an H. We do not have an O, but we do have an A, right? One side is a hypotenuse, the other side is the adjacent. We have AH. The only one that's AH is cosine, right? OH doesn't match. OA definitely doesn't match. We got a hypotenuse, so it's got to be cosine. So let's set it up. Cosine of the angle, which is 58, will equal our adjacent, which in this case is finally X, over our hypotenuse, which is 15. Cool. So what do we do here? This is different, right? X has been on the bottom every single time because I screwed up. So what do we do here? It's actually really easy. You multiply, right? You do the opposite of division to both sides. And you always, always, always have to move the denominator. You always have to move the bottom number. Well, the bottom number this time happens to be a number. So we just multiply both sides by 15. And that's it. Like, that's it. You're done with the algebra. You have 15 times cosine of 58 equals X. I'm just going to plug that in the calculator. So how are we going to do that, right? Calculator, X on top. Well, you're going to do side times angle, trig function equals. And you're done. And the only thing that changes is multiply or divide. But once X is on top, it's literally move the number over, you're done. So if we go to our calculator and we do exactly what I just wrote out, we'll have our answer. So 15 times our angle, 58, our trig function, which is cosine, and our equal sign. 7 point, hold on, text, there we go. Come over here. X equals 7 point, and then let's look, we got 948. 8's gonna add 1 to this, so 0.95 kilometers, yeah, there you go. And again, math checks out. X couldn't be larger than 15. 15's a hypotenuse. 15's the largest side of the triangle. X would be smaller than that. So that checks out. So the only, I mean, looking at it from like the calculator perspective, the only difference of X being on top or bottom is this guy right here. Do you multiply or divide? I mean, algebraically, it's very different. But once you get to the calculator, it's not so different. You just do what it tells you to, right? Cool. That's it. That's it for the video. Today, or sorry, for the next quiz, all you're doing is solving for sides. Next week, I'm gonna post a video where we solve for missing angles using sides and trig. And it's just as easy, but let's get this down first, and then you'll be good to go. Remember, you're welcome to message me at any point in time. Please do. You can set up Zoom tutoring sessions whenever you want. I sit here between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. waiting for anyone to message me. Some of you take advantage of that. Some of you have never met yet. Like, I was gonna say in my life, but it's only been like 9 months, but still. Yeah, take advantage of it. I'm always here to help you guys out. It's my job, and I like doing it. So y'all have a great day. If I don't speak to you before then, have a great weekend. Peace out.